Once upon a time, I found myself in a situation I never thought I would share. Life, in its mysterious ways, has a knack for leading us down paths we never anticipated. Once upon a time, in a world filled with stories yet to be told, there lived a woman named Elise. At the age of 44, she carried with her the wisdom of years and the spark of adventure in her heart. For many moons now, I have walked the path of a single mother, nurturing my son with love and strength, guiding him through the journey of life all on my own. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Lenny who had just turned 22 years old. In the quiet embrace of a single night, we found ourselves bound together, two souls navigating the winding paths of life's joys and sorrows, always there to lend a hand to one another. In a twist of fate, an unexpected event unfolded. With weary eyes and a heavy sigh, Lenny spoke softly, revealing that he was not feeling his best. After toiling away and immersing himself in his studies, he gazed out the window, and to his surprise, an unexpected twist of fate unfolded before him. A voice beckoned him, offering the chance to rest upon my bed for a spell. If he sought solace and rest, he would find it a chilly night within our humble abode, where the warmth takes its sweet time to embrace the weary. And so, with a gentle hand, I draped a heavy blanket over him, wrapping him in warmth and comfort. In the beginning, it appeared to be an ordinary scene, a mother lending her hand to her son. As I reclined beside him, a gentle shift drew him nearer, a subtle dance of closeness in the quiet of the moment. In that moment, it seemed he was merely seeking warmth, and I paid it little mind. In that moment, he enveloped me in his embrace, drawing me near, just as he did in the days of his youth. In that moment, a flicker of surprise danced within me, yet I chose to let it drift away like a leaf on a gentle breeze. In that moment, he was likely seeking solace, a gentle embrace to soothe his weary soul. As we lay there, I could sense the comforting warmth beside me, his steady breathing a gentle rhythm in the quiet of the moment. As I stood there, I could sense Lenny's breaths becoming more languid, as if he were gently drifting into the embrace of slumber. In that stillness, the silence enveloped me, and the rhythmic thump of my own heartbeat echoed like a distant drum in the vast expanse of the room. It was a peculiar sensation, one that wrapped around the heart like a gentle embrace, soothing yet enigmatic. I remained still, reluctant to break the spell of his tranquility. And he whispered to himself that it was merely a mother, enveloping her son in the warmth of her comfort. Yet, as time passed, he made another move, inching ever closer to me beneath the warm embrace of the blanket. As his arm encircled me more firmly, a sudden stillness washed over me, leaving me momentarily adrift in a sea of uncertainty. In that moment, a conflict brewed within me. One part yearned to speak, to break free from the silence, while another part remained anchored, resolute in its stillness. In the stillness of the moment, an unshakable tension hung in the air, a whisper of unease that beckoned for attention, though its origins remained a mystery to me. In that moment, a wave of emotions washed over me, stirring something deep within my soul. In that moment, an unexpected twist unfolded before my eyes, leaving me utterly astonished. As I nestled beneath the warm blanket, a peculiar sensation caught my attention. A solid object lay hidden beneath the soft fabric, stirring my curiosity. In that moment, a wave of surprise washed over me, and I could feel my heart begin to race, as if it were trying to keep pace with the unfolding events. In the midst of the storm of emotions, I took a deep breath, whispering to myself that he was merely my son, a precious thread in the tapestry of my life. Perhaps he was blissfully unaware. There I lay, wrestling with the rising tide of emotions that threatened to engulf me, striving to push them aside. Deep within, I whispered to myself, it was merely a fleeting instant, a peculiar and uncomfortable moment that would soon fade away. As the minutes slipped away, a realization dawned upon me. Everything had changed, and I found myself at a loss, unsure of how to navigate this new reality. Lenny lingered near, his breath a calm rhythm, yet the warmth that enveloped us spoke volumes. As I grew, a desire stirred within me to utter something light and playful, a gentle breeze to ease the heaviness in the air, yet the words eluded me, dancing just beyond my reach. In that fleeting moment, I found myself ensnared, lost in a whirlwind of emotions, uncertain of what stirred within me. In that moment, Lenny made a subtle movement, raising his head to meet my gaze. In the depths of his gaze, there lingered a gentle warmth. In that moment, Lenny cast a glance my way, one I had never encountered before. It was a look that wrapped me in a blanket of safety, while simultaneously sending a shiver of nervousness down my spine. He remained silent, yet his eyes spoke volumes. All around me, the world seemed to inquire if all was well, yet his eyes held a different story, a silent question lingering in the air. With a tentative smile, I sought to lighten the weight of the peculiar sensation that enveloped me, yet instead, it seemed to deepen the stillness around us. Lenny's hand lingered on my arm, a gentle warmth that felt both soft and unwavering. His fingertips brushed against me, moving with a gentle, almost dreamy touch, as if lost in thought. In the quiet moments, it was the smallest of gestures that ignited a fire within me, a sensation so profound that I could not turn away from it. I maintained a calm breath, striving to conceal the truth that my heart was pounding fiercely within my chest. In that moment, uncertainty enveloped me like a soft blanket, and I found myself lying there, lost in the peculiar bond that seemed to weave us together. I reassured myself that this was merely a mother offering solace to her son, nothing beyond that, yet in the stillness of the moment, with just the two of them nestled under the blanket, something deeper lingered in the air. My mind whirled with thoughts that seemed out of place, yet I found myself unable to cast them aside. He was there, and as I lay beside him, a profound connection enveloped us, a closeness that stirred feelings within me that I could not quite comprehend. In that moment, a curious blend of confusion and warmth enveloped me, an unforeseen sensation that anchored my very being. It appeared that Lenny was blissfully unaware of the turmoil I was facing. He lingered by my side, his hand gliding gently, a soothing presence as if it were the most ordinary thing in existence. With each steady breath, he seemed to drift into a tranquil realm, his eyelids gently sealed. I pondered if slumber had claimed him, yet in that moment, his hand stirred, gliding softly along my arm. A chill swept through me like a whispering breeze, and as he opened his eyes, they locked onto mine with an intensity that spoke volumes. In that moment, a silent question lingered between us, as if he sought my permission, wondering if he too felt the same inexplicable pull that drew us together. I breathed his name, the word escaping my lips like a fragile secret, barely audible yet filled with meaning. In that moment, I yearned to break free, to create a chasm between us, yet an invisible force held me captive. The tension crackled like a quiet storm gathering strength, enveloping us in a silence thick with unvoiced thoughts. We were both acutely aware of the weight of what lingered in the air, feelings that danced just beyond our reach. And then, as if drawn by an unseen thread, he leaned in closer, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat echoing in my chest, while my mind spun in a whirlwind of confusion. I found myself unable to retreat, caught in a delicate web of emotions, torn between my duty as Ash's mother and the unexpected feelings that blossomed as he drew nearer. In that fleeting instant, my breath hitched, and the world around us faded into a soft blur, leaving only the profound connection that hung in the air between us. Lenny's hand found its way to my shoulder, a gentle touch that seemed to linger, as if he too was caught in a moment of uncertainty. The world around us faded into the background, and all that remained was the comforting warmth of his presence, the rhythmic pulse of his heart echoing in the silence, a sound I could almost hear, if only for a fleeting instant. With my eyes closed, I sought solace, urging myself to retreat from the bewildering closeness that enveloped us. Yet in that stillness, his hand brushed against my cheek, tenderly sweeping a stray lock of hair away. Such a simple act, yet it stirred a profound ache within me, one I could not quite grasp. When I finally opened my eyes, there he was, gazing at me with a softness that spoke of trust. His face loomed near, every detail etched in my memory, the delicate freckles, the gentle curve of his lips, and the way his eyes searched mine. In that moment, vulnerability radiated between us, a mirror reflecting our shared uncertainty. Time seemed to stand still, the world around us fading into silence. My mind swirled with questions and doubts, yet my body remained still, irresistibly drawn to this person I had known, yet felt entirely new. In that fleeting moment, clarity danced just out of reach, leaving me suspended in the magic of it all. We'd stay frozen in that silence forever, Lenny pulled back, slightly breaking the trance. He looked away, almost embarrassed, and let out a shaky laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. It brought me back to a second, making me realize just how close we'd been, how much we'd shared. Suddenly the weight of it all hit. May took a deep breath, trying to steady myself against the surge of emotions that seemed to rise up from every corner of my being. I hoped desperately that he didn't notice the inner turmoil that churned inside me. "Sorry, Mom," he said, his voice soft and hesitant, a trace of uncertainty lacing his words. "I didn't mean to make things weird." He turned his gaze away from me, and for a moment I caught the faintest blush coloring his cheeks, a sign that perhaps he too was grappling with the same disarray of feelings I was struggling to contain. To found myself frozen, wanted to comfort him, to tell him that everything was okay, that this awkwardness didn't change anything between us, but the words simply wouldn't come. I found myself frozen, unsure of how to break the silence, and in that brief moment, I realized with startling clarity that I had never felt more out of place with my own son. I reached out, instinctively, my hand resting gently on his shoulder, hoping the small gesture would offer him some reassurance. A quiet smile tugged at the corners of my lips as I tried to ease the tension, though I could feel my own anxiety threading through my words. "It's all right, Lenny," I murmured, my voice soft and steady in an attempt to reassure him. It's just been the two of us for so long, hasn't it? We've gotten used to it, and now it feels a bit strange." He nodded in understanding, and I saw a flick of relief pass through his eyes, as though the words had struck a chord. Just as the atmosphere seemed to lighten, the doorbell rang, shattering the fragile calm we had just begun to build. The sharp sound of the bell jolted us both out of the moment, reminding us of the world beyond that door. I stood up quickly, my heart still racing from the exchange, feeling an odd sense of gratitude for the interruption. As I made way to the door, I noticed my pulse quicken, and I couldn't shake the strange, lingering energy that remained from the conversation with Lenny. When I opened the door, I found our neighbor Mark standing on the other side. He was smiling, his familiar face offering an instant sense of comfort, though I could tell his eyes lingered on me a moment longer than usual, as if searching for something beneath the surface. I quickly gathered myself, hoping the lingering tension from the earlier moment wouldn't be apparent to him. "Hey, Elise," Mark. "Hey, Elise," greeted warmly, his voice as friendly and easygoing as ever. "I thought I'd come by and check if you needed anything. I know it's been getting a bit colder lately, and I can help with any heating issues if you've been having problems." His thoughtfulness was a welcome relief, and I felt an unexpected wave of gratitude wash over me. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to let the sense of comfort in Mark's presence soothe the remnants of Eunice. "Oh, thank you, Mark," I said, giving him a smile that was a bit more genuine now. "Actually, the house does tend to get a little chilly, especially at night. I'd really appreciate your help." Mark stepped inside, his footsteps steady and reassuring, and I felt Lenny's eyes on us immediately. From the corner of my vision, I could see his face, his expression hard to read, but something about the way he was watching us made my stomach tin for a brief moment. I could have sworn I saw something akin to jealousy in his eyes. Though he quickly masked at his features, returning to their usual indifference, the look caught me off guard, leaving me with an uneasy sense that perhaps Lenny was feeling something more complicated than I had realized. As Mark moved around the living room, checking the heater, he made small talk, asking about how things had been at home, how I was managing with everything. His voice was light, and his presence was comforting in a way that I hadn't expected. But all the while my attention kept drifting back to Lenny, who remained quietly standing in the hallway watching us with a quiet intensity that made the air between us feel charged with something unspoken. The tension in the room had subtly shifted, and I found myself torn between wanting to make Mark feel welcome and trying to ease the discomfort I could sense building in Lenny. It was as though the two of them were quietly competing for my attention, and I had no idea how to navigate the delicate space between them. I glanced at Lenny once more, and for a fleeting second I saw something flicker in his eyes, something that made Dean wonder if he was struggling with feelings he hadn't shared with me. But before I could make sense of it, Mark turned to me, his face breaking into air sharing smile. "All right, everything looks good. Here, Elise," he said, his voice warm. "Just call if you need any more help, Lenny." I thanked him, and as he stepped out the door, I could almost feel the tension between Lenny and me intensify, thickening the air in a way that made everything seem more complicated. I gently closed the door behind me, turned only to find Lenny standing still in the hallway, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face was serious, his gaze unyielding, and there was something in his posture that made it clear that whatever was happening between us was far from resolved. "Are you okay, Lenny?" I asked, my voice soft but searching, trying to make sense of the distance that had suddenly formed between us. I needed to know what was going on in his mind. Why the space between us seemed to grow arger with each passing moment he gave. A small, almost dismissive shrug, his voice barely audible as he replied, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just didn't expect Mark to show up." That's all. His words hung in the air, but they didn't seem to explain everything that was happening beneath the surface. I wanted to reach out to ask more, to understand why this felt different, but before I could form another question, he turned and walked past me, heading toward his room without sparing me another glance. The silence between us was deafening, and the soft click of the door closing behind him felt like the final seal on the conversation that had barely even begun. I stood there for a moment, rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by an odd mixture of relief, confusion, and an unsettling sense that something important had been left unsaid. I found myself staring at the closed door to Lenny's room, my heart heavy with a sense of loss I couldn't quite put into words. It was as if something had shifted between us, something unspoken that hung in the air like a cloud waiting to burst. My mind replayed everything the way we'd been so close earlier. The subtle way his gaze lingered when Mark was here, and that undeniable tension that had simmered just beneath the surface threatening to break free. I made my way to my own room and sank down onto the edge of the bed, my thoughts racing as it tried to process everything that had just happened. I knew that I couldn't ignore it forever, that sooner or later we would have to face whatever it was that was changing between us, but I wasn't sure how to start, where to even begin untangling this web of emotions. Just as I was lost and thought, I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart skipped a beat, of sudden hope flaring up in my chest. Maybe it was Lenny returning to talk. "Come in," I called, my voice steadier than I felt. The door creaked open, and there he was standing in the doorway with that unreadable expression I had come to know so well. He stepped inside and sat next to me on the bed, his hands folded in his lap, his gaze fixed downward. The silence between us, Lenny breaks. The silence stretched on thick and heavy, as if a weight of everything unsaid was too much to bear. The moment felt almost suffocating, yet somehow necessary. Finally, Lenny broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom," he began, his words tentative, as if he were choosing each one carefully. "I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry if I made things weird earlier. He trailed off, the words seemingly stuck in his throat, his frustration clear as he struggled to articulate the emotions he couldn't fully express. I reached out and placed my hand on his, offering a quiet reassurance, a gentle squeeze that said more than words could. "Lenny, it's okay," I replied softly, in my voice steady despite the uncertainty that swirled within me. Maybe we're both feeling a little lost right now. It's been just the two of us for so long, and sometimes things get complicated." "It's okay to feel confused," he nods slowly, his eyes still focused on, his hands a distant look in them. There was a weight in his gaze, a depth of emotion that made my heart ache. Then, after what seemed like an eternity, I finally lifted his eyes to meet mine. His gaze was filled with some anti-emotions, uncertainty, frustration, longing, and something else that I couldn't quite name, but it felt different. It wasn't just the usual frustration or confusion. There was something else there. Something and unspoken. I didn't know how to respond. I murmured, his voice so quiet that I almost missed the words. It was as if he were afraid to admit, yet afraid to confront whatever had been building between us. The vulnerability in his words hit me harder than I expected, and in that moment I understood just how much this was affecting him too. I could feel the weight of my own heart aching in response to the confusion in his eyes. For a moment, the urge to reach out and hold him close overwhelmed me. I wanted to wrap him in my arms, tell him everything would be okay, reassure him that we could navigate through this together. But I hesitated, unsure whether that would truly help or if it would complicate matters even more. What he needed was unclear, and I wasn't sure if my instinct to comfort him was the right course of action. So instead, I remained still, allowing the heavy silence between us to speak louder than words ever could. I sat there feeling the weight of the unspoken tension, waiting for the right moment, unsure of how to break the stillness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I took a deep breath, studying myself, and turned to face him. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of what he was feeling, what he might need from millennia. Maybe we just need to take a step back and really think about everything. I sighed softly, trying to find the right words, the right balance between reassurance and understanding. It's okay to feel close to each other, but it's also okay to need space to sort for your thoughts. We don't have to have everything figured out right this moment. He nodded slowly, as if the weight of my words was sinking in, but then in an unexpected movement that caught me off guard, he leaned his head on my shoulder. It was a gesture that immediately took me back to the days when he was younger, when he would often seek comfort in that familiar way. It felt warm, soothing, and yet there was something different about it. Now there was a tension beneath the surface that I couldn't ignore, a quiet recognition that things between us had changed in ways we hadn't fully understood yet. My heart softened at the touch, and without thinking I wrapped my arm around him, pulling him close in a way that felt protective and comforting. It was an embrace that offered safety, even though I knew the questions lingering between us were far from being answered. There was so much unspoken, so many emotions we hadn't fully processed yet, but in that moment, I realized that maybe we didn't need all the answers right now. We could take it step by step, figure it out together, even if the path ahead felt uncertain and complicated. As we sat there holding on to each other, I felt a sense of quiet calm wash over me. There was a soft, unspoken hope that lingered in the air, that no matter what we were facing, no matter how difficult things might seem, we could still find a way through this together. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in silence, the closeness between us offering a fleeting sense of peace. For a brief moment, it felt as though the confusion and complexity of our situation might dissolve simply by being near each other. But I knew deep down that it wasn't that simple. The comfort of his presence was undeniable, but beneath that warmth, there was an undercurrent of unease, a feeling neither of us could fully shake off. After a while, Lenny pulled away slightly, lifting his head and meeting my gaze. A serious intensity expression had shifted the comfort of the moment, giving way to a serious intensity. "Mom, I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he said quietly, his voice laced with uncertainty. "I don't want to make things harder between us, but I can't just ignore it either. His words lingered in the air, thick with unspoken tension, like a question that he didn't have the courage to voice. The weight of his silence pressed down on me and swallowed hard, my mind racing in frantic circles as I scrambled to find the right words. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything there came another knock at the door. We both jolted at the sound, startled by the interruption. Our yes locking in surprise and uncertainty. The knock was firm, deliberate, almost as if the person and the other side sensed something was amiss and needed to break through whatever was hanging between us. A wave of nervous energy washed over me, and without thinking I stood up and walked to the door. When I opened it, Mark was standing there once again, his face clouded with concern as though he had been weighing something heavy in his menis. He said, his voice laced with genuine worry, "Sorry to bother you. Just wanted to check if everything was okay. You seemed a bit off earlier, and I wanted to make sure you're all right." I hesitated for a moment, then glanced over my shoulder at Lenny. He was watching us closely, his expression unreadable there between us, charged with unspoken questions. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice, though it trembled slightly as I answered, "Thanks, Mark, but we're fine. Just having a quiet evening." Mark gave me a long, searching look, then turned his gaze to Lenny. His eyes lingered on him, thoughtful and probing, before returning to me. He nodded slowly, though something in his demeanor suggested he wasn't fully convinced. All softening. "Right," he said, his tone softening. "Just remember, I'm next door if you need anything. Don't hesitate." When he turned and left, I closed the door with a quiet click and leaned against it for a moment. Gathering my thoughts, I turned back to Lenny, who was still standing there, watching me with an intensity that made his skin prickle. His eyes seemed to pierce through me, searching for something, for the truth perhaps, or for reassurance. After a long pause, he stood up, his movement slow and deliberate, and I felt my heart pick up its pace once again. The air between us felt heavy, thick with all the things neither of us dared to say. He moved closer and embraced myself for whatever words might come next, but when he reached me, he stopped, his expression shifting, as though he were battling some internal struggle. Maybe we shouldn't push this, Mom," he said, his voice quiet, trembling just a little. "Maybe we need time to think." No, his words hit me like a wave, and I nodded, my own heart aching with the same conflicted emotions he must have been feeling. I understood the need for space, for time to figure things out. "You're right, Lenny," I replied softly, my voice thick with the weight of everything unsaid. "We both need to think about everything. We can't rush this." Lenny nodded in agreement, and we stood there in silence, our proximity, strange mixture of closeness and distance, as if we were on the brink of something we couldn't fully grasp or control. It felt like an ending, but also the beginning of something new, something we couldn't quite define yet. As he walked slowly to his room, I remained rooted to the spot, wondering what the future would hold for us and whether we could find a way forward together or apart. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Before we say goodbye, if you have not yet subscribed, I invite you to press the subscribe button. Your support, even if it seems like a small gesture, means a lot to us and drives us to continue creating content with heart. Don't forget to give it a like if you liked what we shared today, as every interaction helps us grow and allows us to continue connecting with you through stories that matter. Thank you for being part of this community. See you